He promised her forever, but 2 weeks before the wedding, she discovered he had already married someone else. Lisa Carter sat in the courtroom, her hands clenched together as she stared at the man who had shattered her world. The whispers of the audience filled the air, but she barely heard them. All she could focus on was the betrayal that had brought her here today. Judge Judy entered the courtroom, her sharp gaze scanning the room before she tapped her gavel. The murmurs instantly died down. "All right, let's get down to business," she said, her voice firm. "Miss Carter, you're suing Mr. Reynolds for fraud, claiming he scammed you out of thousands of dollars under the pretense of marriage. Mr. Reynolds, you deny these claims. Let's start with you, Miss Carter." Lisa took a deep breath, willing herself to stay composed. "Your Honor, I was engaged to this man. We were supposed to be married last month. I paid for the venue, the dress, the catering, everything. Then just 2 weeks before the wedding, I found out he had already married another woman." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Judge Judy's brow lifted. "Hold on a second. You're saying he was already legally married?" Lisa nodded, her voice steady but laced with pain. "Yes, Your Honor. I found out from his wife. She messaged me on social media. She said she had just married him 3 weeks before my wedding date." All eyes turned to Mark Reynolds, the man sitting stiffly at the defendant's table. He swallowed hard before speaking. "Your Honor, it's not what it looks like. I loved Lisa, but things got complicated. I didn't plan to hurt anyone." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "Complicated? You were engaged to one woman while legally married to another. That's not complicated, that's deception. Did you or did you not take money from Lisa under the pretense of marriage?" Mark's face turned red. I never asked her to pay for anything. She wanted the wedding to be perfect." Lisa's anger bubbled to the surface. "I wanted our wedding to be perfect. You let me spend everything knowing you were already married." Judge Judy held up a hand to silence her before flipping through the paperwork in front of her. "Miss Carter, do you have proof that you paid for these wedding expenses?" Lisa quickly handed over a folder. "Yes, Your Honor. Here are receipts for the venue deposit, the catering, and my wedding dress. Over $10,000 in total." Judge Judy examined the documents before fixing her gaze back on Mark. "Mr. Reynolds, did you contribute a single dime to this wedding?" Mark looked down at his hands. "No, Your Honor." "So, you let Miss Carter pay for everything while you were already married to another woman?" I was going to tell her. Eventually. Judge Judy leaned forward. "Eventually? When? At the altar? Or after she changed her last name?" A chuckle spread through the audience. Lisa felt a grim satisfaction, but it wasn't enough. She wanted justice. Tears welled in her eyes as she turned to Judge Judy. "He humiliated me, Your Honor. My family was ready to fly in for the wedding. My mother was so excited, and then I had to tell everyone it was canceled because the groom was already married." The courtroom doors suddenly swung open. A woman stepped in, Jessica Reynolds, Mark's wife. Her face was etched with fury. Judge Judy barely glanced at the bailiff before addressing the newcomer. "Who is this?" Jessica crossed her arms. "I'm his wife, Your Honor." The room erupted in whispers. Judge Judy exhaled heavily. "Well, Mr. Reynolds, looks like your past is catching up with you. Mrs. Reynolds, were you aware that your husband was engaged to another woman?" Jessica's glare could have burned through steel. "Not until Lisa messaged me. He told me I was the only one. He even told me Lisa was just a friend." Judge Judy turned back to Mark. "Do you lie as easily as you breathe?" Mark remained silent, his face pale. Judge Judy tapped her gavel once. "Here's what's going to happen. Mr. Reynolds, you took financial advantage of Miss Carter, knowing full well that there would be no wedding. That is fraud. You're going to reimburse her every penny, $10,000, and consider yourself lucky you're not facing criminal charges for bigamy." Mark's jaw tightened, but he gave a reluctant nod. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Judy turned to Jessica. "Mrs. Reynolds, I'd get yourself a good divorce lawyer." Jessica smirked. "Oh, I already did." Laughter rippled through the courtroom as Judge Judy banged her gavel one last time. Judgment for the plaintiff. Court is